Well, sometimes, we believe that the world just kind of revolves around us. I mean, let's be honest. We all have our moments of self-centeredness, don't we? But then on the other hand, we sometimes wonder if God really cares about us. We wonder if we really matter to God. He is so powerful. So today we continue our series, Summer in the Psalms. And this particular psalm, the 8th psalm, this is an amazing book. But just this one chapter happens to be one of my favorite. And the 8th chapter invites us to examine the worth of a human being, especially in the eyes of a God who is so majestic and worthy of our praise, as we have sung tonight. So David begins and ends this psalm with a bold declaration about God. The first and last verse both say, "O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." Now, that phrase, "O Lord, our Lord," might sound rather redundant. But if you take a closer look in your Bible, you'll notice that the first Lord is printed in all capital letters. That's because in the Hebrew language, this is God's personal name, Jehovah. You may remember that this is the name that God revealed to Moses at the burning bush. And it basically means, I am who I am. God is the great I am, Jehovah. He was not created. He just is. He has always been, and he always will be. But the second word for Lord only capitalizes the L in that name, and it is a different word in the Hebrew language. It's the word Adonai, which means master or ruler. So the first Lord is a name, and the second Lord is a title. So David is saying, Jehovah, you are our master, our sovereign Lord. Now there's one more word in David's opening verse that may need clarification, and that's the word majestic. Other translations use the word excellent or glorious or magnificent. David was so enamored by God's name and by his attributes that he used this phenomenal word to describe a majestic God, one who provided for all of his needs and who protected him throughout his life. Now, there's some folks who might look up into the night skies and see a bunch of little twinkles and a bright moon and think not much about it. But David saw much more than that. He saw somehow the majesty of how huge God must be, and it's displayed all around us in the heavens. A number of years ago, Russian cosmonauts made their first journey around the earth. And upon landing, they announced, "We have been in the air, we have been around the earth, and we did not see God." Well, the following Sunday, the great preacher W.A. Criswell made this classic statement. But if those cosmonauts had stepped out of their spacesuits, they would have definitely seen God then. Well, in sheer contrast to those atheist cosmonauts, American astronaut Frank Borman commanded the first space crew to travel beyond Earth's orbit. And perched 250,000 miles from the Earth, Borman radioed back this message. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And he later explained, I had this enormous feeling that there had to be a power greater than any of us, that there was a God, that there was indeed a beginning. Well, the shepherd boy David, he didn't need to board a spaceship and travel into outer space before he declared, "Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." That was so important to David that he used that phrase as bookends of his psalm. Everything we have, everything we are, comes from God, our Creator and our Master. And His majesty deserves our praise. So, do we matter to God? I think David would say, what matters to you matters to God, because you matter to God. Well, David then shares with us 3 reasons why the name of God is so majestic. First of all, God's name is majestic because He has created the universe. The last part of verse 1, he says, you have set your glory above the heavens. David also contemplates God's amazing creation down in verse 3. He says, when I look at your heavens, get this, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place. Now, I want us to take just a moment to consider the vastness of the earth and the heavens and the universe. Now, this planet, as you may know, is about 8,000 miles in diameter. But imagine, for comparison's sake, if the earth were the size of a golf ball. Do you see you there on the earth? That little dot is probably Texas. So that gives you some idea. Well, if the earth were the size of a golf ball, then the sun would be the size of a giant beach ball. Now, that's probably still not big enough. I couldn't get a weather balloon in here, but that'd probably be closer to it, because scientists have calculated that you could actually put 1.3 million golf balls inside the sun. That's almost the number of golf balls that are lost here in the villages every year. Some of you can relate. Well, not only that, but one of the largest stars in our galaxy, much bigger than the sun, is Canis Majoris, and it means the big dog, for obvious reasons. That star, the Canis Majoris, could hold over 2,000 beach balls, or 2,000 of our suns inside that star. And how about distance? As you know, our sun is 93 million miles away from the earth, and light from that sun, traveling at 186,000 miles per second, takes about 8 minutes to reach us. So the sun then would be 163 yards away. That's about 2 football fields if the earth were a golf ball. And the nearest star would be 24,000 miles away. And the nearest sister galaxy, the great Andromeda galaxy, would be 1 trillion miles away. That's if the earth were a golf ball. Now, I want to share with you a brief video that was done by Louis Giglio. Some of you may know that name. But I'll tell you what, this video blew me away. Now, he does several, and you can pull them up on YouTube. But I want you to just see this one from Louis, if you run that for me, please.
A little bit more. This absolutely blew my mind. Just a little journey through our solar system. Everyone knows our planets and sort of how we fit in to the story here. You see really quickly that we're not even the biggest deal in our own solar system, but as Earth comes by, you have to know tonight that we are living on a privileged planet. Anyone would tell you we're living at one of the most special places, if not the most special place in all of creation. But Neptune comes by and Saturn and then Jupiter, and you're like, okay, we're not all that big, even in our own little cul-de-sac. I just noticed the blue dot fading away is not the Earth. That's Neptune. The Earth has gotten too small to see anymore. Sirius comes by. Little plug for satellite radio. Not the biggest star, but the brightest star that we have found so far. Pollux, which we didn't mention. Arcturus. Such a beautifully named one, Regal. But then the one that messed me up. Our third star, Musifi. Musifi's cousin, W. Cephei. Majoris. This is the crazy thing about Betelgeuse. Are you ready for this? Betelgeuse is twice the size. Are you ready? You think I'm going to say twice the size of the sun? Oh no, it's twice the size of the Earth's orbit around the sun, Betelgeuse is. It's crazy. If the Earth were a golf ball, Betelgeuse would be the height of 6 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. Now, come on, have you seen the Empire State Building? I mean, maybe what you're going to need to do is gather the family, get a golf ball, get some plane tickets, and fly up to New York.
How great is our God? I mean, I don't know about you, but I just can't fathom the distance, the size, the enormity of the universe that we are a part of. Thanks to NASA, thanks to the Hubble telescope, we certainly know a lot more about the stars and the universe than David did when he wrote this. But I think the more we know, the more we should be amazed. When we're in awe of God's creation, whether it's the night sky or a rainbow or a beautiful sunrise, maybe the miraculous birth of a newborn baby, we should praise our majestic Creator who's behind it all. If these things are beyond our comprehension, can you imagine how great our God is? David wrote that God's fingers put those stars in place. And that includes the big dog star, Canis Majoris. The brilliant scientist, Sir Isaac Newton, he once said that he could take his telescope and look millions of miles into space. But he said, when I lay it aside, go into my room and shut the door and get down on my knees in earnest prayer, I see more of heaven and feel closer to the Lord than if I were assisted by all the telescopes on earth. Well, without the use of any telescope, David sang, "O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." The second reason that God's name is so majestic is because he has established the weak to overcome the strong. In verse 2, he says, Out of the mouth of babies and infants, you have established strength because of your foes to still the enemy and the avenger. You know, there's not a lot of wisdom that comes out of a newborn baby. There's not a lot of strength that comes out of the bodies of infants. And yet the Bible here says from that kind of weakness comes the strength to overcome the enemy of God, Satan himself. So how is that possible? Only through the majesty and power of Jehovah God. Throughout the scriptures, we see God's mighty hand at work through weak people. Consider Gideon, who led his army of 300 soldiers to defeat 135,000 soldiers of the Midianite army. How about Noah, who spent 120 years building a boat to save just a remnant of God's creation? Or consider Moses, who wasn't so sure, but eventually he stood reluctantly before Pharaoh and demanded the release of God's people. And consider David himself, the shepherd boy who took down Goliath, a 9-foot giant, with just a small stone and a sling. And consider the Apostle Paul. He felt helplessly inadequate to deal with his thorn in the flesh as well as his other struggles. And yet he discovered that in his own weakness, God's strength would shine through. He said, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." God loves to employ weak, ordinary people to accomplish some powerful and extraordinary things, all because God is the one to get the glory. Oh, Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Now, in the last few verses of this Psalm chapter 8, David says that God's name is majestic because he has appointed man to oversee his creation. I can just picture the shepherd boy David as he gazes up into the night sky and he writes these words, "When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you're mindful of him, the Son of Man that you care for him? And yet you have made him a little lower than the heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. You've given him dominion over the works of your hands. You've put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the seas." David says, God, in view of your great majesty and glory and power, you still think about us, and you care for us. Do you ever take the time to consider the wonders of God's creation? The wondrous power that he possesses? The vastness of the universe? The beauty of the earth? The wonder of the human body? Even life itself? All of this was created and sustained. Get this. All of it was created and sustained by the God of heaven, all because of his great love for us. We are God's cherished creation. We are created in his own image. And in view of all of the mighty wonders that God has performed, we are his priceless treasure. He's crowned us with glory and honor. I wonder, when David wrote this psalm, if he was thinking about these verses in the book of Genesis, where God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. When I consider God's greatness and majesty, I am just amazed that he still cares for me. I'm amazed that he longs to fellowship with us. I'm amazed that he has entrusted all of his creation to us. I'm amazed that he's preparing a home in heaven for all of us. And I'm amazed that he would love us enough to send his son to earth to suffer and die for us. So no matter what trials you may be facing in life, don't ever forget that we serve a mighty God, but one who also cares for you and for me, because we matter to God. Oh Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Let's pray. Father, my words are just inadequate to express your majesty and your power and your creation. Just the tiny little things that we can see through a microscope, as well as the vastness of the universe that we can see through powerful telescopes. But all of it was created by you, and Father, you have kept it in balance. The orbits are the same. If they were to change, if something were to happen on the Earth's axis or the distance we are from the sun, any of those things were to be changed, we would not be here. And God, you have continued to sustain those things just for us. We are deeply grateful that you have chosen us as your treasured creation. And we surrender our lives to you. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.